Draft grades are far from a new concept on YouTube when it comes to NFL content. There's plenty of people out there who dedicate a channel to a specific team and will talk about each individual pick in depth, or they'll talk about the draft class at whole in depth. There's plenty of people out there who cover the league at large, such as myself, that will go division by division or conference by conference or talk about the draft in one big video. But you never see anybody talk about each individual team in their own draft grades video. All 32 teams, 32 videos. You never see that happen until now. Because I was disappointed with the pre draft content I was able to put out, because as a college student, free time is a luxury that I don't always have, I have decided to make up for it by making 32 videos throughout the month of May talking about my thoughts on all 32 teams' drafts. And I'm really excited to get into this. Keep in mind, as per usual with draft grades videos, I know that I am going to be wrong on most of these, primarily because we haven't seen these guys play. We don't know how they're going to be developed, all of that good stuff. This is just my analysis based upon how I graded different players leading into the draft. You know, if I think a guy was overdrafted based on my evaluations, underdrafted, etc., that's what these grades are based off of. I also don't think I'm better than any NFL GM out there. I'm just a 21-year-old college kid who spends the little free time he has watching film. So bear with me. People seem to like my opinions on this kind of stuff. I like sharing it, so I'm going to continue to do so. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the Detroit Lions 2024 draft class. Last year, myself and many others really heavily critiqued the Detroit Lions draft class. You look at what they did, you start out with a running back and a linebacker, then you draft Brian Branch and Sam Laporta, and I didn't like Laporta. Of course, I got proven wrong very quickly after Laporta had one of the greatest rookie tight end seasons ever. And most people liked Laporta. Most people liked Brian Branch. I was a huge Brian Branch guy. And then after that, it was, Hendon Hooker, who didn't play. A lot of people, including myself, weren't a big fan of. And then some nobodies, I think. Broderick Martin was in there, Antoine Green, and an offensive lineman that I can't remember the name of off the top of my head. But the point is, the Lions had a really controversial draft class, especially those first two picks. Because people said you're taking a running back and a linebacker in the first round after you just signed a running back in free agency. And, you know, those are two positions that aren't like big, important positions in terms of positional value. And then, of course, as we all know, the Lions turn around, win the NFC North, go deep into the playoffs. All of their rookies, except for, ironically, Jack Campbell, who was one of my favorite players last year, all had really big years for them. So the reason I bring this up is because last year I didn't like the Lions draft class, and it was really, they ended up being really good in their rookie year. This year's draft for the Lions, I'm kind of wishy-washy towards. Like, I like some of the picks, I really don't like some of the other picks. And because of that, I feel like this class for the Lions in their rookie year is either going to be horrific or they're going to be all-time greats. You know, if I was on one end and it ended up on the other end, me being in the middle is going to result in this class being either incredible or terrible. But let's go ahead and dive into the actual players themselves, starting out with two corners, the first of which is Tyrion Arnold out of Alabama. They end up trading up 5 spots to get him. They give up pick 73, and they get back, I think, a future 7th or something to that effect. Yeah, they get a future 7th back. They moved up from 29, give up 73, they get 24 and a future 7th. I don't like the process of trading up for Arnold. I wasn't a big Tyrion Arnold guy personally. I know I am not quite on an island, but I know that isn't a super popular opinion. Arnold's fine. I think he's a good corner, but I liked Kool-Aid McKinstry a lot more. I think he fits what the Lions are looking for at corner, which is a physical press man corner that's going to beat you up at the line of scrimmage and be able to play in run defense. Arnold is that to like a muted degree, if that makes sense. Like, he has those tendencies, but he's a smaller corner, and in my eyes is going to be at his best playing from the nickel. And unfortunately, or fortunately, you have Brian Branch, who is one of the best nickels in football already. So that puts Arnold in this situation where he's almost going to have to play outside, and drafting him at 24, I feel like you're probably drafting him to play outside, which is fine, but that kind of drops my opinion of Arnold a little bit, just because I don't think he's big enough or quick enough to really hold up out there at the NFL level. like, yeah, in college it's different, but when you're 5'11", sub 190 pounds, it's going to be tough. So he's either going to have to bulk up a little bit, or they're really going to have to find ways to get him to negate his size. And that makes this a little bit trickier of a projection for me. Like, if Arnold would have went to a team where there was a clear opening at nickel, it's like, okay, this is a great pick. But trading up for him, giving up the 73rd pick, which ended up going on to be Cooper Beebe, who I thought was one of the best interior linemen in this class, is really tough. I don't hate the pick. I don't think Arnold's a bad player. I just don't think this should have been the pick here. And if they'd stayed at 29, I would like this a lot more. Like, I've got Ennis Rakestraw with an A grade. Arnold probably would have been an A- if they would have taken him at 29. But trading up 5 spots for him is tough for me. And then Rakestraw, he kind of has some of the same problems. I just like Rakestraw a little bit more. I had a higher grade on Arnold, but Rakestraw, I think, is a more physical version of what Arnold brings to the table. Neither one of them are like super athletes. They're both small, scrappy, physical corners. Rakestraw a little scrappier, a little more physical. Although that does come with some downsides. Rakestraw is going to be a little more grabby in coverage. He's going to kind of get in trouble with his size because he's going to play thinking he's bigger than he is, which will cause its own problems. So you have these two corners that just, in my opinion, fit best as nickel corners playing on the outside for you. And again, I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. I don't think this is like DEFCON 5, your secondary is going to be horrific, and the Lions needed to upgrade their secondary. You know, you have Justin Jefferson in division, you have Jordan Addison in division, you have DJ Moore in division, now you have Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen in division. You have the Packers receiver room, which has Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks. You have a lot of receivers to worry about just within your own division. And then the NFC at large, as of right now, you have Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. Maybe that changes, maybe that doesn't, whatever. You have A.J. Brown, you have Devonta Smith, you have Cooper Kupp, you have Puka Nacua. You have all these great receivers just in the NFC that you have to worry about going up against. And Detroit's secondary last year was filled with a bunch of Jimmies and Joes. There weren't a lot of like standout players. So I absolutely understand investing capital at corner. I would have liked it a lot more if they went Kool-Aid and Rakestraw and then just straight up said, hey, Brian Branch, he's going to play everywhere this year. There's going to be snaps where he's going to play nickel, he's going to play linebacker, he's going to play, as a true safety. He's going to do a little bit of everything. And I think Branch will do a little bit of everything anyways. But you really need, I think, in my opinion, to have one of these guys as a true nickel. And that's just not going to happen. These guys, I don't think are going to hold up on the outside, especially Arnold. I don't think he's going to hold up on the outside against some of these bigger, more physical receivers. Like, I think DJ Moore would bully him. I think Justin Jefferson would bully him. So it's going to be interesting to see how this secondary develops. Now, I will say, if there's any place to go when you're a little bit undersized and need to learn how to punch a guy in the throat, it's Detroit, right? So, again, this is one of those things where I can see the vision, which is why these grades aren't, like, bad. Like, I think a B and an A is pretty respectable, especially the A, obviously. But getting a B on a first-round pick that you're trading up for, I don't think is, like, disrespectful. I think that's just like okay, it's fine. But I wish they would have taken Kool-Aid. That's the big thing here. If they would have taken Kool-Aid, I would have liked this draft a lot more. Or if they would have just stayed at 29 and hoped Arnold fell to them, I would have liked this draft a lot more. But then we get into day 3, and the first thing they do is they go out and get Giovani Manu, the offensive lineman out of the University of British Columbia. And this is a really risky move. You give up a future 3rd-round pick to trade into the 4th round to take an offensive lineman that has never played a snap of American football. I don't love that. Now, I see the upside. He's 6'7", 350 pounds. Obviously, Detroit's offensive line coach is incredible, given the work that they've done with the Lions' offensive line as it is now. Guys like Taylor Decker, Penei Sewell, Frank Ragnow, they have a great group. So now you bring in Manu, he's going to get to develop with that group. I totally understand the thought process. I totally understand that. But giving up a 4th-round pick for a guy like this is really, or a future 3rd, is really tough. Because you look at other instances of this. Think the Eagles with Jordan Mailata. They took him in the 7th round. Now, it panned out for them big time. They took a flyer on an Australian kid in the 7th round. He's one of the better tackles in the league, just got a big payday. If this was a 6th, 7th round pick and they gave up like a future 5th, then it's like, okay, I see the vision, this is fine. But taking this kind of gamble in the 4th round by giving up a future 3rd makes this really tough. Now, I'm not going to lie, I will be fully transparent. I am grading this based off this pick specifically, I am grading off the process alone. I don't have Giovani Manu film. I didn't watch Giovani Manu. I've been able to piece some things together from, different scouting reports and watching Daniel Jeremiah talk about the pick when it got made. But the truth be told, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be a Giovani Manu expert. But the process of giving up a future 3rd to move into the 4th round to take a flyer on a player like this is tough. Now, maybe I'm a little bit off base and Manu is secretly this super refined and developed tackle. I don't think that's the case. I don't think I saw anyone with a grade higher than like a 6th on him in the scouting reports I was able to pull together. So we'll have to see. I just think this is a really risky move. Now, there could be a super high reward because, again, 6'7", 350 pounds of tackle. If he can pan out, that's awesome. This will be looked at as like, oh my God, Brad Holmes is a super genius type of move. Or it can be a, wow, Brad Holmes really took a swing on this one and he missed hard. But it's not like a make or break move. So, that's why it's a C- and not like an F or a D, because it's the 4th round at the end of the day. It's not a make or break move. I just don't like giving up future capital to make that kind of move. And then speaking of giving up future capital, they trade a future 4th round pick to, who was it they made the move with? They make the move with the Eagles. They trade pick 164 and a future 4th to the Eagles to get 132 and 210. And they select Sion Vaki, the safety running back hybrid out of Utah. And I'm going to keep it a buck. I don't think Vaki's a running back at the NFL level. I don't think that's something they're going to do a whole lot of them with. Now, we could see him on kick returns, and maybe they'll have designated packages to get him on the field on offense, because there's a little something there. But realistically, he's a safety at the next level. And I don't think he's a particularly great safety. He's a good open field tackler. He can read the quarterback pretty well. He's good at taking on blocks. He's a good, physical safety. But in terms of some of the other safety stuff, his back pedal's weak. He's not good in man coverage. He's not great in zone coverage. He has short arms, which really hurts his tackle radius. And then there's, issues with his ability to flip his hips. He's not a great safety. He's like a box safety. So taking a guy like this in the 4th round, trading up, again, this is a player that if the Lions took in the 5th round, great, because that's the grade I had on Vaki. I had him with a late 5th round pick. It's my safety 9. There were a couple other really good safeties on the board. This is a Lions player, so I get it. That's why this grade, again, isn't lower than it should be. Any other team taking Vaki in this situation, trading future picks to get him, it would be like a D. Detroit, it's a C+, because I know they're going to have some crazy vision for him that makes no sense at the time, but it's going to work out because, of course, it will, because it's Detroit, right? But unless you're drafting him with the expectation that he's going to be a complete gadget player in all phases of the game, then I don't understand taking him over some of the better safeties that were on the board. There weren't a lot of safeties off the board at this point. So I don't love the pick. I think it's whatever. It's not the end of the world. Again, it's a late 4th round pick. It is what it is. I just, again, don't love trading up to make it. It's just not the pick I would have made. And then you get to Makai Wingo here, the defensive tackle out of LSU, which, if I'm not mistaken, the Lions also traded here. But this one, they didn't mortgage any future picks. They give up 189, or they get 189, excuse me, by giving up 205 and 249. I'm not pressed about that. I don't think that's the end of the world. Wingo's an interesting case. I wasn't a huge fan, but I think when you're looking at Wingo, you're just saying, hey, it's the 6th round. We need a designated pass rushing defensive tackle. And Wingo can be that. I had a late 4th round grade on him, so this is actually pretty good value. I know the B+ doesn't necessarily reflect that. I just didn't love Wingo. I'm not a big fan of D tackles that struggle to defend the run, and I feel like Detroit could have used some more run defending D tackles. But, because this is a guy that's never going to be a 3-down player. He lacks the play strength and anchor you want from an ideal run defender. He struggles to diagnose run concepts, but as a pass rusher, he's only 21. He's really good at converting speed into power. He has a great first step. He's able to penetrate gaps at an instant. He has more bend than you'd expect from a defensive tackle. He's pretty hard to move as a pass rusher. That's because he's got like a lower center of gravity. He's this real stout build. I don't know why I was trying to complicate that sentence. But he's somebody that, if he gets his hands in your chest and he's able to put a move on you, he's going to get into the backfield, or he's not going to let you get a hand on him. He's going to quickly penetrate and he's going to get into the backfield, get to your quarterback. Like, he's a fun player. He serves a role. It's the 6th round. It's good value. Again, I just don't love Wingo as a player. Maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh with a B+. Maybe this should be more like an A-. In fact, you know what? I have it. It probably is an A- when you're looking at it. I'm going off of my graphic that I have in front of me right now while I'm recording. And in the moment, I feel like giving him a B+ is being a hater. I'm being a hater. So no Kendrick. I'm going to turn this into an A-. I think it's a good pick. It's fine. It's just, again, a situation where maybe there were better defensive tackles on the board. A guy like Leonard Taylor was still available. He ended up going undrafted, which is absurd. McKinley Jackson, Fabian Lovett. There were some guys on the board that I liked quite a bit more that I would have liked to see them take here, but all in all, Wingo fits a role for Detroit, and they need a designated pass rusher defensive tackle. And then their final pick, they pick probably the most Detroit Lions offensive lineman in this class in Christian Mahogany out of Boston College. He's just the epitome of, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to hit somebody, I'm going to hit them hard, and I'm going to take their kneecap with me on the way back to the huddle. Right? I really like Christian Mahogany. I hate that he's a Detroit Lion. I really do. I had a 4th round grade on him, so getting him in the 6th round is fantastic value, hence the A+ grade. This was by far and away their best pick, in my opinion. Now, there are some issues. His balance isn't great. He's going to need to add just a little bit more functional play strength, but again, I was talking up the Lions offensive line coach when I was talking about Giovani Manu. Obviously, all of that sentiment applies to Mahogany. You'll be able to, bulk him up a little bit, get him in the weight room, fix that kind of stuff, because he's not going to start right away. He's going to be a rotational piece on the line. There are some issues with him leaning as well and overextending as a pass blocker. He's a good athlete. He's a really physical player. He's a true tone setter on the offensive line, which you can never have too many of, and Lord knows Detroit wants as many as possible. He was somebody that started 11 games as a redshirt freshman. He doesn't have any really glaring weaknesses in terms of his technique. I would say the reason he slid is probably just because he doesn't have any true standout physical traits, but I think he's a more than capable offensive lineman. He's someone you take a flyer on in the 6th round. Again, I thought he should have been drafted way earlier, but taking him in the 6th round says to me, you're like, okay, this guy's gonna do something for us at some point. He could be 6th man of the year at defensive tackle, goodness. He could be 6th man of the year on the offensive line, or he could be the long-term Frank Ragnow replacement. He could plug in at guard at some point in the near future. There is potential for him. So I think that's a great pick. And I hate to admit it, I think the Lions had a better draft than I was giving them credit for when I was coming into making this video. Because at the beginning, I said, I'm kind of so-so on the Lions draft. But after sitting here and talking about them for the past 15 minutes, I kind of really like what they did. Which, hey, going by my logic at the beginning of this episode, if I did like what they did, or if I liked what they did, goodness, words are difficult. If I liked what they did this year, and I didn't like what they did last year, then certainly there will be an adverse effect, and the Lions draft class will suck. So maybe this is me playing, mental chess, but I'm going to give them an A-. I thought the Lions had a really, really solid draft. Don't love the process on the Manu pick. Don't love the Vaki pick. Really think they should have went Kool-Aid in the 1st round, but otherwise, I think they did really, really well. I think this is a draft class that has some pretty immediate contributors, even if they're not all going to be, true starters. Guys like Wingo and Mahogany and even Vaki, they're all going to serve some sort of role right away and long-term, and then also Arnold and Rakeem Straw are going to be immediate starters. So it's a really good draft, as much as I hate to admit it, and Brad Holmes did indeed cook. So, apologies for last year's grade, but hopefully this shows that I'm willing to be optimistic about the Lions, and they give me something to be optimistic about.
Met a chance on the throwback.
This was an ill-advised throw. What an unbelievable catch by Cole Kmet. And he cups it too. No movement when he hits the ground, tucked up against his shoulder. Wow.
Using that